Yo, we step up in the scene, check your engine is clean. DPF guys got your ride smoking green. No block, no drag, just pure machine. Come show us your truck, we'll make it pristine. We just wanna know, can your diesel uphold? Bring something dirty, we'll turn it to gold.
Okay, folks, I tell you what, if you've been watching and wondering, are you going deaf? Apparently, I'm a terrible producer because I've been sitting here chatting for about 20 minutes and my mic was muted. So now we should be pretty good. But anyway, so real quick, it is Sunday, September 22nd. I'm just going to go over this right away, quick, right? We have people joining us from TikTok here, and we're going to go through 10 questions real quick, and then we're going to get to answering some of your questions coming in live. So here we go. All right, let's jump down to question number one. I'll skip over all the disclaimers and everything like that. Question number one was from a text from this morning. I've got a 2015 F250 6.7, and I'm in a bad spot. I have to travel 6 hours for work tomorrow. Can you hear me okay now? My truck keeps saying exhaust filter overloaded, drive too clean. I've been driving for 5 hours, running between 2,500 and 3,000 RPMs. And can I clean? Apparently, he still has to pull over to do a regen. Can I clean the DPF using a water hose and purple power, or should I just use compressed air? Any advice is greatly appreciated. So this is a good one. And I'm glad you contacted me first before spraying water and purple power into your Ford's DPF. While we use water as a part of our complete cleaning process, I don't recommend ever using water on your own. If you're going to try cleaning your own DPF, because either you're not near us and don't have a DPF guys near you, or you're in some sort of desperate situation like the gentleman who texted me today. Using chemicals to clean your DPF, or even just water by itself, will normally cause more harm than good, not because the water or chemical will actually damage the DPF. It's unless, again, the only time that it will damage if you're using a power washer, that will damage your DPF. And yes, I know 50 people will say, I always clean my DPF with a power washer. And I guarantee you're always damaging your DPF. And if you brought one to us and we put it on the test machine, that thing, you'd be able to look through it like a screen door. So never use a power washer to clean your DPF system. You hear that, TikTok? But the water can definitely the chemical can turn the accumulated ash into mud that will harden into a concrete-like substance that is very difficult or even impossible to remove. So I recommended to him that uses compressed air, blow enough junk out of that thing so you can get back on the road, and then bring your truck someplace like us to get it cleaned properly, but do not use water. Okay, question number two. This is a follow-up question from the same gentleman. He's asking, could a turbo leak cause these problems? So he snuck in a second question. It's a pretty good one. So here we go. His truck has fairly high miles, but not a ton. But since he mentioned a possible turbo leak, it's important to talk about how a leak cause of DPF clogging, other than the usual high miles, high hours. So upstream issues could be bigger problems like failing injectors, failing turbocharges, or it could be smaller, easier to fix things like exhaust leaks. So an exhaust leak can definitely affect a truck's ability to properly regenerate and cause soot to build up to the point where the truck won't run. And this might be what he's facing. The exhaust leaks allow hot gases to sneak out of the exhaust system before they can make their way down to the DPF and properly vaporize the soot buildup. This can also be caused by dirty air filters that can choke off the engine, preventing a regen. And I recommend that he visually inspect the clamps and gaskets around the turbo. And he stated that he started hearing what sounded like air leaking from the compartment when he got on the accelerator. So he may be seeing symptoms of an exhaust leak combined with just having high miles and a DPF that is getting full due to normal use. Sometimes these issues sort of stack up on each other. So it's good to be able to contact somebody like us to see the best way to untangle the knot. All right, question number three. This is another text one. This is kind of a bummer. He's got a 2020 Kenworth T680 with a Paccar MX-13, 454,000 miles. And guess what? He had a cracked head, and for some reason, the truck was throwing SCR faults, which finally put the truck in a maximum limp mode. So we brought it to a shop. They did a long block change out, got truck back 5 weeks later. It was down for over a month. Drove the thing only about 50 miles, and the engine light comes on now, has an SCR fault again. What should I have checked? Because they just started throwing parts and sensors now. I put several $1,000s in it, and it was getting to where I can barely afford to get it fixed. This is a story that I hear way more often than I would like it to hear it. And uh, so we got a 2020 T680 with a cracked head already at 454,000 miles. And again, they just don't make trucks like they used to. That's for sure. And to go kind of on a mini rant here, I get so many comments that the only reason why trucks don't last is because of their stupid emission system. And while I don't disagree that anytime you add something to a system, you have more things to go wrong, and emissions is no different, whether it be automatic transmissions, USB ports, ABS, lane departure radar, intermittent wipers, computerized everything, APU, GPS, flat screen TVs, microwaves, and refrigerators with power inverters in the sleeper, climate controls, cruise controls, and yes, emissions. All of these are more things to go wrong, but everything from your batteries to your airbags are no longer built like they used to be. In the past, getting 750,000 to a million miles and 15 plus years of use out of your truck was not uncommon. But most modern trucks are now designed to last about 500,000 miles, and that's about it. So here we have somebody with a truck that's not even 5 years old with a cracked head. I have asked him for the codes, and we'll check those out when he gets them to me. But this SCR issue may be due to something simple like bad DEF. The truck was sitting for 5 weeks. Maybe the DEF kind of expired on him. That's why you should have a DPF, guys, DEF refractometer in your glove box. Or maybe he's got a sensor that's going bad, or maybe a DEF pump or a clogged or failing DEF doser, also called a metering valve. Whatever the case, I hope the owner of this truck lets us run through some of his diagnostics before they start shotgunning parts and thousands of dollars worth of work on that truck. All right, on to question number 4. Go Fast Gilbert from TikTok. I have a 2015 Ram 3500 Dodge. The truck is all stock with 173,000 miles. I still have the original DPF, and I still get about the same miles per gallon. Should I get it cleaned, replaced, or just keep driving? First of all, thanks for your question, Go Fast. I want to confirm that we can definitely clean that DPF on your 2015 3500 Dodge. But if it's not causing you any issues, I'd say let it ride. 173,000 miles are getting close to the point, kind of the interval where you may want to get it cleaned. But if your truck hasn't required a park regen yet, and if you aren't seeing any other issues, you don't need me. At least you don't need me yet. Save my number, though, because you will need me eventually. You're probably running a fuel additive. If not, you should run Clean Air Fleet. Keep your oil changed, keep your air filters clean, and you shouldn't have any issues. Once that truck gets to about 200,000 miles or a bit beyond that, start thinking about getting it taken care of. But for the most part, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Once you do need us, though, we can usually do a cleaning on a medium duty truck, a light duty truck, a medium duty like a 3500. DPF and DOC would normally be about $750 once it's off the truck. So you still have to have a mechanic pull that thing off the truck, and you can even ship it to us. Now get out there and keep on trucking in that 3500. Question number 5. This is Timothy Wright. This is one that I rambled on a bit about. But how do you justify the massive cost of maintaining one failure of a system? The fine, meaning the fine for tampering with your truck or deleting your DPF, is cheaper than the replacement. Now, I don't know what Timothy Wright means by massive cost of maintaining one failure of a system. He didn't say, but I'm assuming he has had an experience where his truck was in the shop for weeks while the number on the bottom of his invoice grew faster than kudzu in July. If the root cause is an aftertreatment issue, if the root cause of the aftertreatment issue was a substantial engine failure, then yes, fixing the damage after, damaged after treatment along with the initial cause, whatever the engine failure was, can be expensive. However, the diesel emission system is actually rather simple once you fully understand it. And while truly catastrophic failures in the downstream emissions do happen, they are almost always caused by something going wrong up in the engine. And most of the time, the problem is that whoever is working on the truck doesn't have the necessary knowledge, experience, or equipment. And again, it's just, there's only so many hours in the day. I don't blame people for not being experts in all these things. So they don't have the knowledge, experience, or equipment to repair the issue, and the only option is an expensive replacement. So no, I don't know how to justify how a dealership may want to charge you $8,000, $10,000, $22,000 is what I heard on TikTok today. When maybe all you require is a thorough cleaning, and maybe that would only cost $700 or 2 grand or something like that, depending upon what's going on. And of course, this is after it's off the truck, so there'll be some mechanics labor in there too, but still a fraction of the cost of what some of these people are charged, and also much faster. Normally, we can turn these things around in 24 hours, um, but we don't want to have your truck down for weeks. And even in the rare occasion where replacement is necessary, if you know what needs to be replaced and what doesn't need to be replaced, the costs are usually way lower than you'd expect. So, as far as just paying the fines, because the fines are less than the repair, I need to first ask if you are sure about that. And also keep in mind that if you do get caught, you'll have to pay the fine and you'll still have to fix the truck. Because there's just no free lunch on this. I don't make the laws. I didn't invent the DPF or the SCR or the EGR cooler. I just have a business in Atlanta called DPF Guys that will keep your emission system running as effectively and inexpensively as possible for as long as you have that truck on the road. Now, if you want to stick it to the man and delete your system, go ahead, roll coal. I won't, I can't stop you. But if you have a truck and want to maintain its warranty, you want to be able to go to the dealership to get service, you want to be able to sell or trade it at some point in the future, that's what we're here for. Okay, down number 6. Um, Unpopular reality 1 from TikTok. Do you have any government contracts cleaning their emission systems? And this is a typical kind of gotcha question that people, you know, shoot up to me, and they're meant to get me to say that, oh, the government doesn't have emissions, so we never do, we never work in their vehicles. So yes, people talk about the military, an armored personnel carrier or an MRAP, or other military vehicles that are considered to be tactical. That's a definition. May not have emissions either. And that's because maybe the vehicle was built pre-emissions, just like a glider truck, it's pre-emissions. Or there is an exception for tactical military vehicles. Just like military vehicles also may lack various safety equipment that's required in your truck and car today, and such as airbags, even seatbelts sometimes. And but there are some military vehicles that are exempt from emission standards. You can read all about the exemptions. Look up the following statute: 40 CFR 109.0. I'm sorry, 109.605, and that's called the National Security and Military Use Exemptions for Emissions. However, on the other side, there are many regulations that keep military vehicles off public roadways in the U.S., and you are free to drive on those roadways. And again, it has to do with how many miles from the base, et cetera. But that's why you don't see military vehicles bombing up and down the highway every day, because that is restricted, mainly because the vehicles lack some of the safety features that are required for highway driving. But that being said, your question is, do I have government contracts? And the answer there is yes. Buses, fire trucks, ambulances, snowplows, SWAT mobile command centers, and believe it or not, one Marine base in Georgia has a cleaning all of their filters of its diesel vehicles on the base, and there are a couple other bases in line. So all I can tell you is emissions are here to stay. And yes, I'm sure it was a lot of fun for you to roll coal back in the old days, but times have changed, and we're here to make things as easy as possible for you. Question number 7. From Jay Wiggins 07 from TikTok. An engine needs oxygen and fuel to combust. Are you saying the EGR recirculating exhaust back into the engine does not displace oxygen and fuel? Personally, I wish the EGR cooler wasn't necessary, because it truly is a thing that has, points of failure, a lot of points of failure, potentially. and there's really no way to keep an EGR squeaky clean because of all the dirty exhaust that flows through it and flows to the EGR valve and the Delta P sensor and everything. But if you run a good additive, again, like Clean Air Fleet, which is parked right back here, that will definitely help keep that clear. However, I will say that the Cummins 6.7 engine that's in the typical Freightliner M2 in the international box truck will have injectors that just fail like clockwork at about 250,000 miles or equivalent number of hours. And this, you'll notice this on buses. If you work on buses, you'll notice this as well. And when those injectors begin to fail, they don't throw a code because the failure is down at the tip of them. But they will run really, really dirty, and they will plug up your EGR cooler pretty bad. Other than that, the EGR cooler is pretty reliable. Recirculating cooled exhaust in the cylinder prevents overheating with modern engines that run a lot hotter than engines from 20, 30 years ago. And the recirculated exhaust actually contains unburned diesel in the form of particulate matter that can actually be combusted by the engine. Fun fact here, during World War II, when diesel was short, or was it World War One? When diesel supplies were really limited, they were actually running diesel engines on ground up coal dust, believe it or not. Diesel will burn just about anything. Again, I didn't design the system. I'm just here to keep it running properly and cost effectively as possible. Also, what I find interesting is I get this question about EGR coolers, and what I find puzzling is how people will say, oh, that yucky, dirty, sooty exhaust is bad for the engine. But the very next sentence, they'll say, I just want to shoot it into the air for everybody else to enjoy. So anyway, I don't know if that's an answer or even a question, but on to number 8. Number 8 from the Clean 2.8 from TikTok. What's the filter made of? I love basic questions like this, and they're good ones to know. The diesel particulate filter, or DPF, is made of one of 3 materials now: cordierite, silicon carbide, or aluminum titanate. The DOC and SCR is usually still just made of cordierite, and you can tell the difference between materials by the appearance, by the color mainly. Cordierite is a naturally occurring mineral discovered by a French guy with the last name of Cordierite is light tan in color, and has been around for about 100 years, actually more than 100 years, and has been used in emission systems since the creation of the catalytic converter. Silicon carbide is a newer material that's in DPFs now. It's dark gray, and you'll notice the difference because it is normally in little squares, about an inch, looks like a checkerboard. Aluminum titanate is very hard to tell apart from cordierite, but it is synthetically manufactured and supposedly has higher temperature and impact resistance than cordierite. So all emissions components, whether they are cordierite, silicon carbide, or aluminum titanate, are all considered ceramics and designed to stand up to the rigor of hot exhaust for many years. But there's always the need for cleaning, and sometimes things break and need to be replaced. That's why we're here. And of course, 404-999-1361. All right, number 9. We're getting to the end here. User with a bunch of numbers from TikTok. This I can kind of hear a sad trombone. Wah wah. Had filters cleaned on a Cummins engine 2 weeks later. Regen light comes on. Did regen, now light comes on every day. Think cleaning filters is a waste of time. Yeah, if it's not done properly, it can be a waste of time. Or if the issue wasn't your filter to start with, it was a sensor, or it was a face plug DOC that didn't clean the DOC. So maybe your filters weren't cleaned properly, but I suspect that you might have something going on in your engine, or maybe just a faulty sensor. Now, if you happen to have a Cummins 6.7 engine, those things will plug a clean or even brand new filter in as little as 500 miles due to injector failure. If you have a bigger Cummins, you probably just have a bad pressure differential sensor. We recommend replacing that sensor every couple 100,000 miles or so, because those sensors have a tendency to fail, kind of wear out, or even get filled with water for some reason. So give us a call, 404-999-1361. I bet we can fix that for you once and for all. Okay, we're on our last question. Then we're going to switch over to our friends at TikTok. Let's see. Justin Marsh 092. This is the biggest bunch of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. If these dumbass DPF systems really save the environment, why does only the US and Canada require them? All right. I think somebody um, needs a hug. But, fly into LAX sometime and look out the plane window. I used to fly into LA several times a year. And prior to emissions, the air was yellow with smog. And now it's clear. Yes, emissions are a pain, but you can really see the difference it makes. And one of the things, while truck drivers still suffer from health issues related to the jobs, there has been a substantial and noticeable reduction in respiratory problems in the truck driving population since most trucks are capturing exhaust and soot and reducing NOx emissions by at least 90%. So just imagine, pre-emissions, and you'd have a truck, a truck stop with hundreds of trucks idling all night long, all of them, cranking out the soot, the particulate matter, and there you are, breathing that stuff for 8 or 10 hours a day, every day. It really did have an impact on people. And yes, I know emissions are a pain in the ass. I don't argue that, but we want to make it as painless as possible. And look, I know you're going to say I never had a problem with respiratory issues, and I smoke 2 packs a day, and I can still run a marathon, so on and so forth. But not everybody is like you. Not everybody is superhuman. But to clarify, yes, you are right. Diesel emissions are required in the U.S. and Canada, not just US and Canada, but also, let me get this list right: Japan, Mexico, South Korea, China, Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, and Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, and more to come. Right or wrong, for better or worse, the list of countries and states requiring and enforcing diesel emissions is growing and not shrinking. And so, like I said, you can pull your DPF system off, you can delete it, you can do whatever you want. I mean, that's between you and the baby seals and the pandas. But we allow you to keep an emission system on your truck and do it in a way that has as little impact on your success and the reliability of your vehicle as possible. So anyway, that's it. I went through my questions. Sorry for anybody who was watching me and not hearing me because I was on mute. Chris Men says, I can't hear you. Now you can. All right. So let's pull up some TikTok action here. What do we got? All right. I'm going to read through these TikTok questions, so bear with me. All right. TikTok was good. YouTube was on mute. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. What do we have here? I know we had someone make a couple of comments here. Okay, here's a good one. So the question is, how often should these big rigs perform a forced regen, in your opinion? So if you're running a big rig and you're out driving that thing for 12, 14 hours a day on the highway, it should manage itself fairly well. It should passively regen, whenever it needs it. And if it does call for a parked regen, and you haven't done anything weird like sitting idle for hours at a time, and you can't remember the last time you had your DPF cleaned, or if you got it cleaned several years ago or a couple 100,000 miles ago, you're probably due for a DPF cleaning. I would say that if you drive your truck normally and over the road, you really shouldn't have to worry about doing a parked regen manually. And a parked regen is burns a lot of fuel. It does, it runs the engine pretty hard. So I like to, avoid that if I could. Not that it would hurt anything doing it once or twice, but if you did it every day, if your truck calls for a parked regen, it's telling you that you need to get your DPF cleaned. Now, if you do something like drive a crane or something where the thing does idle, or you do fuel delivery where you pull up and then run the PTO, um, and you do idle a lot, maybe you want to do a park regen on a, weekly basis. But for your typical use case for an over the road truck driver, um, you shouldn't have to do a parked regen. And if the truck does call for it more than once, it's telling you need to get your DPF cleaned. How's that for an answer? All right. That's a good question, though. Thank you. I'm going to save that so I can add you into the drawing for next week. All right, I'm going to scroll through here, see what we got. All right, so here's one. So what is a good price for a DPF cleaning? Again, your mileage is going to vary on this. Um, and, but I would say that, somewhere in the $300 to $400 range for the cleaning, maybe, 500. Again, so depending on the market, obviously some of them have, some of it's, rents are a lot higher and things like that. Um, and then you have to budget another few $100 for clamps and gaskets. I mean, for example, our numbers will vary slightly, but what we're doing typically is you're under $500 to get the DPF and DOC cleaned, and then whatever it costs for new gaskets, which you'll need, as well as new clamps. We do highly recommend new clamps. Um, and so most people are out the door for less than $800. Now, if you've got a Freightliner Cascadia with a Detroit engine and a one box, that's different. The parts are more expensive. There's two of everything. The cleaning plus all the parts might be closer to $1,700. Um, and then, I'm not sure what the dealerships charge for the remove and reinstall and hook up the computer, reset everything. Um, but if you ever wanted to give us just a C, give us a call at 404-999-1361 and tell us about your truck, and we can, give you an estimate on that. And the idea is that, I know there's probably people that do DPF cleaning for less than we charge, but it's kind of a horse apiece. You either get kind of a half-ass job done and the truck will be okay, but you got to get it cleaned again a lot more often, which means, you know, more labor, more clamps, more gaskets, more downtime. Our goal is to get that DPF cleaned like new or as close to like new as possible so that if you brought that truck in at 350,000 miles, you should have, you should be able to go another 300,000 miles before you have to come in again versus, coming in at 75,000, coming in at 60,000. You want to keep you on the road as long as possible because if those wheels aren't turning, you are not earning. Um, all right, what else do we got here? Do me a favor, make sure you like the live on TikTok as well as wherever else you might be, and um, definitely share this with some people. If you're not following me on TikTok yet, why not? You should be. And go over to youtube.com/DPF guys and follow our YouTube channel please. Hey, thanks for sharing the live. Really appreciate it. Okay, this is a good one. What from Greg here. What are your thoughts on the EGR and carbon flushes like kits that flush on trucks? Um, I don't know. It just seems, you know, without taking the components off the truck, it always seems to be what happens is the flush will flush something out of one spot and then rinse it down someplace else and they'll get stuck there. And people will be like, oh, well, I washed everything, out my DPF. Well, you're washing it into your SCR then, or you're washing it into the DEF decomp chamber. Um, I would, you know, the best way to clean this stuff is to get it off the truck, clean it, make sure that all the junk you're flushing out, no matter how you do it, is going someplace then, other than kind of working its way downstream in your truck where it's going to plug things up. Um, and so that's my thought about that. I've seen, I've cleaned filters that have gone through kind of, you know, chemical cleaning on the truck and things like that, and they're generally pretty messed up. We can always bring them back, and they're not, you know, it's not a big deal. But you know, you go through the expense of doing the cleaning, and all of a sudden everything's plugged up, and now you know, it's it's much more effective to take that thing off the truck and do it right. American Iron, you are one of my favorite supporters out there. Thank you. I tell you what, on when things get tough, one of your comments will pop up, and it always makes my day. Thank you, and I appreciate you watching and appreciate your support. Let's see what we got here. All right, thank you so much. Okay. Welcome aboard. All right, so we've got, if anybody's over on YouTube Live, make sure that you don't forget to follow me on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, make sure you go to YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. We're going to be doing more and more educational stuff and things like that on YouTube. So I want to make sure nobody misses it. But other than that, I think we've covered a lot here. Again, I apologize for the technical issues where I was basically silent for 20 minutes or so. I'll have to do a little bit of editing and re-upload this. But so as always, thank you very much. If you want to ask me any questions that you haven't asked already, please enter them as a comment over here, down below, wherever they happen to be, or text us your question at 404-999-1361. Again, that's 404-999-1361. And in the meantime, have yourself a wonderful Sunday and a great week. And I hope to talk to a couple of you in the next few days. And hopefully everything that you got out there is running good. And with that, we are off the air.
The skills, the might to get your truck rolling clean into the night. Throttle up, feel that clean airflow. Our service so slick, your ride seals the show. DPF guys, we got the fifth so fine. Hit the road with confidence, now the world's your shrine. Bring in that rig, let's get on track. Breathe easy with no sooty black.